Hello everyone. I hope you are all doing well. Welcome to our webinar. It is made in partial fulfillment of the requirement for professional communication class COM 2301, supervised by Dr. Agnaou at Akhawayn University. My name is Kenza En-nassef. I am really pleased to moderate this webinar about improving productivity in the workplace, since it continues to be a very important challenge in the workplace, especially to how it has become a necessity to tackle the topic due to the recent COVID-19 outbreak and the shift that many workplaces have adopted to better deal with the circumstances. The pandemic indeed affected the global mental health based on some personal experiences and according to an article by researchers in the Department of Psychiatry. Hence, productivity levels got affected. Our welcomed guests will talk about it in details. We have four guests. We're gonna start with Dr. Ziyad. Okay. Dr. Ziyad Mourabiti. He's the author and scholar in communication and managerial studies. Then we're gonna move on to Mr. Aymane Yassine. He's the manager of the media affairs in the first year department in AUI. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Aymane Yassine. Then we're gonna move on to Mr. Mouad Belemlih. He's the founder of the company Lab, specialized in digital solutions for gamers. And last but not least, we have with us Mrs. Wissal Chafik. She's the junior partner at Mckinsey Nobles, a Chicago-based law firm. We are really happy to be here with you. We're gonna thank you so much for the live viewers and for those who will be watching later. For the live ones, there are some technical tools you could use to interact with us and our guests. There is the comment section where you could ask questions, and we're gonna have a Q&A session at the end. So feel free to ask any question you want to our beautiful guests. So we're gonna start with Dr. Ziyad Mourabiti.
Thank you, Ms. Kenza. To start off, I would like to, before we dive into this topic, essentially, I would like to have a sense of appreciation for the impact of productivity and how crucial overall it plays in the workplace. Now, productivity in the workplace is an extremely essential component that contributes to the success of any workplace. So, generally speaking, productivity levels must be taken into account and constantly be worked on, regardless of the kind of business that you are operating in your workplace, or the scale of the workplace, whether it's a small startup or a giant company. Now, it also does not matter where your position is in the workplace. The extent to which you are productive will impact your ability to achieve both personal and collective goals within your workplace. Now, productivity is also, it's not just an individual thing. One can also bring up productivity within a certain group. The level of communication and collaboration are two variables that play into that as well. Now, the end result of it all is essentially a product. Now, this product is attainable through various skills and characteristics like setting, meeting goals, prioritizing needs, and managing time, etc. Now, when you're working on your productivity, especially at early level stages, employees should be, in a sense, appreciative of all the small incremental changes that are being made to the company, as it shows a sign of improvement, and it often accumulates to something that is much greater in the near future. Now, when you're improving productivity, touches on ways to enhance your output in the workplace. So it's either within yourself as an employee or as a manager or as a member of your team. And this is doable through various approaches that I will be expanding on. Now, with regards to the approach, the main approach is how we increase productivity with effective communication. Now, first of all, the first factor is increased accountability. Now, accountability is essentially taking a particular role in the creation of a product in general, can be anything, while being fully responsible for the quality and the performance of that product at the end. Now, as you can probably see that accountability and productivity are interconnected, and I'm going to explain how. Now, there needs to be a clear line of communication within the workplace. This allows individuals to receive clear instructions to set the ground for the work that they need to do, and they should be held accountable for that work that they do. If there is no accountability, however, employees will simply not be compelled to improve or work on their tasks. Now, in the worst case, they might even not deliver their tasks on time. Now, if they deliver their tasks, it might be something that is not quite complete as well. Now, that shows a clear link between accountability and productivity in that sense, because the first one does boost the second. Now, say, we just give you an example. Say you are essentially a team of 6 people, and the product, let's say, is an event. And you, as a team member, are responsible for the visuals and the advertising. Someone else in the team, for example, is responsible for the logistical settings. So it is important for the team to hold one-on-one meetings with the manager to communicate their progress and be held accountable for whatever they are doing at that moment. Um, the team member who is in charge of advertising may procrastinate and not prepare proper advertisement visuals in the set deadlines. That would lead to an unbalanced workplace, and that would lead essentially to a drop in productivity, just because there were no constant meetings taking place to update the progress of the employee. Now, the worst case scenario is that the whole event would flop and essentially does not take place due to the poor advertising, despite all the work that was done by the other team members. Now, that was increased accountability. Now we move on to friction and misunderstandings. Now, in the context of having to properly communicate instructions to employees, there needs to be far less room for misinterpretations. This can be achieved through the general assemblies and the one-on-one manager meetings, as I mentioned earlier, and partial progress evaluations. That's something that can be, for example, weekly with employees, so that if there was a misunderstanding, the issue can be brought up, cleared up, and fixed before reaching a critical product stage. Now, this step is also well supported and held together when employees are comfortable communicating their concerns with the team manager in case they feel like they have misunderstood some parts of the project. Now, that was misunderstandings. That was the part about misunderstandings. Now, um, for my points about communication and the constant need for meetings, it also leads to having a clearer direction that is communicated by the manager to all the employees. Now, with regards to transparency, it can be seen by many people that increasing transparency is proportional to the increase of productivity levels. However, that's not necessarily the case, and we need to further dwell on that point, actually. Now, in a series of studies, Harvard Business School assistant Professor Bernstein, he showed that decreasing the level of observation of employees can in fact add to their productivity levels. Now, the feeling of being observed in an open space can make the employees less comfortable and more self-aware of what they're doing in the office. Now, that can decrease their overall focus and thus become, what can I say? They will not be able to perform tasks in a more natural, intuitive way. Although the study does not quite suggest that everyone should fully stop racing towards full observability, but rather that doing so will have consequences that vary from workplace to another depending on the nature of their work, and it needs to be considered by the workplace. Now, to recap everything, I'd like to keep this recap quite short. Now, with all these details, it is safe to say that productivity is a true symbol of effective communication, collaboration, and organization. And this all leads to essentially an achievement, which can be a product of any sort. Now, different aspects of work ethics and responsibilities are all within this one characteristic that makes or breaks the workplace. Thank you. And I will now take it back to our moderator, Kenza, who will continue to guide our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ziyad. It is great to have you as a guest. Now we're going to move on to Mr. Aymane Yassine. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Kenza. Hello everyone. As a manager of the media the media affairs in the first year experience department. I would like to share with you my experience during about 2 years now. So me as a manager, I of course had my I had faced many challenges during my especially two first months. So the most important challenge that I had faced is the communication. So the communication is very important inside the workplace. For example, my boss, since I have my boss also, of course. So my boss gave me like about five to nine events as an objective to cover during 1 month. So I have to coordinate with my team, which is composed of RA or resident assistants. So I have to coordinate with them, and like we have to discuss how the events are going to be, etc. So during the first 2 weeks, as I said, I had many challenges, including the communication. So I had to go and make some research. The first research that I found is the problems that every manager can face in the workplace. So as you can see in the graph, the first thing that what makes the manager like uncomfortable discussing with his employees is the communication in general. And if you can notice, the last thing is speaking face to face, like with the employee. So from this, we can conclude that the managers avoid to like have a problem in the communication and can't manage to communicate with their employees. So in another research, I found some mistakes that the manager do or the managers do. So they have to avoid them, and they have to avoid them. So I will talk about four of them. The first one is making random announcements. The second one is not being honest with the team. And the third one is using your power in the wrong way. And the fourth one, as you can see, is to not underestimate the capabilities of your employees. So for the first one, you should not make a random announcement. What I mean by random announcements is like making controversial announcements. You have to be clear, like because when you like have this kind of announcements, you create a certain an anxiety inside the workplace. So the employees don't know what to do. So to in a way to clarify what you're saying, you have to give your employees a plan or a scenario of what you're planning to do. And this also, as I said, with doing this, you're gonna avoid generating an anxiety in the workplace. For the second mistake that managers commit is you should not lie. Like you have to be honest with your team. Like uh, and you have to be honest. Like for example, if there is a problem, you have to like discuss it with them. And with this, we're gonna gain your employees' trust first, and by gaining the employees' trust, of course, you're gonna make the employee like comfortable in his workplace, and by having the comfortability, we will of course increase the productivity in the workplace. For the third point, which is you should not use your power in the wrong way. This means that you are a manager and you have to know that every reaction or everything that you do during a meeting, the 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 employee or one of the team can consider it in a wrong way, like in a wrong way, as I say. So you have to use a simple and clear language to communicate with them. So try to be as much clear as you can, and keep in mind that the employees uh, try to soft their updates for you to not ask many questions. So this means that you have to know that every employee try to like there is an update and there are some problems there, but he try to like to make it easier to you to listen to, like to not ask questions or to not get angry. So this specific problem, was the cause of that was the cause of the biggest industrial disaster that happened 10 years ago when a multinational oil company named BP PLC committed like the largest oil spill in the history with a total of 409 million barrels, which costed the company about 65 billion dollars. After the investigation of the White House, they found out that the problem came from a wrong information or an information that was not clear from an employee to his boss. So for the fourth problem, the for the fourth point is you should not underestimate the capabilities of your employees. So for example, if you're in a meeting and you know that there's some problems during the with your boss, or there's some problems in the company in general, you have to share these issues with your team because they can notice what is happening. So just share some issues. Like there are some issues that you should not share, but try to share some of them with your team and take into consideration their opinion, because sometimes you can find the solution by discussing these problems with them. That's all for my part, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Aymane Yassine. It was a pleasure to have you in our show. Now we're gonna move on to another speaker, Mr. Mouad Belemlih. We are really glad to have you among us. Yeah, I will let you talk about your experience with us. Thank
Thank you, Kenza. Hello, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank all of the other speakers for sharing their
you.
ideas, their perspective.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mouad.
No problem.
Uh, I cannot hear you well. Can you try to talk again? Can you repeat?
Sure. Can you hear me better?
Uh, I,
Is there?
yes, I do. I do. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So I was saying that I wanted to thank all of the other speakers for sharing their point of view and their ideas on how to increase the productivity in the workplace. For my part, I will be tackling the physical environment, which is for me, and I think in general, a really important point to emphasize on when trying to increase the productivity of a company or trying to build up a new business and trying to find the best layout, the best office layout, or the best type of space in which your workers are going to produce. So quickly, I just want to give you a brief history of what I did in the past 5 years. I was working as a sales manager on a company which did pretty great. They had a great sense of work and expertise, but they also gave me good formations and they taught me some really good skills. However, there was a really important problem that was occurring in the space of the office. There was not enough light, there was not enough space for people, and it was really disturbing. It couldn't leave us to work completely and fully till the end of the day. However, I still stayed for 5 years, but I learned a lot, and today I'm trying to show you what are the best types, what are the best office layout to look on. So here are 5 or 6 quick types of workspace in the office that are really necessary in order to be good. I will start by the office layout. So the first office layout is the open space layout, which is one of the most common for the 10 past years, I think. It is consisting of many desks that take almost 8 to 10 person working close to each other without much space, but leaving more room, more freedom to move around the space. It generalize and centralize all the work around, so the managers can keep an eye on every worker during their time. The second office layout is the enclosed office layout. It is pretty basic. It is traditional. It is an old way of working in which it just consists of many different rooms separated by walls or glass. uh, in which people work with more privacy. Of course, I'm talking about office layouts, but each of them has their advantages and inconvenience. And I think each of them work better for a specific type of workers, depending on age, gender, type of business, etc. The third office layout I want to show is the flex office layout, which is pretty recent today. It is quite similar to the open office layout, in which it is pretty centralized around a big room. However, I think that what is good about it is that there is no problem on who needs to work where. There is no people can move around freely how they want and where they want. So I will follow by a research from Dr. Barry Haynes, Louise Suckley, Nick Huntington, which are all MBA and doctor students from Sheffield Hallam University, where they talked about the workplace productivity and office side. So they talked about five factors to quickly explain what it is about, which are comfort, office space, interaction, distraction, and social interaction point. Each of them are composed of smaller factors that need to be taken into consideration. For me, the most important factors to start about is the comfort. The lighting needs to be here. There needs to be cleanliness. It is basic, but the color and texture can be changed depending on the idea, and it can give a great spirit to the workers. The physical comfort, depending on what furniture or desk you're using. The temperature should be around 20 to 24 degrees for a cool room for your workers. The office space should be comprised of formal meeting space for reunions, informal meeting space to meet up between colleagues, quiet area to stress down, storage to have small privacy. The interaction, so it is quite similar to the second factor, in which there needs to be interaction with your boss, with your manager, with your colleagues, and there needs to be short distances, and sometimes there needs to be separation for more productivity, depending on whether it is open, flex, or enclosed. The distraction is usually linked to the open office layout, in which when people are really close to each other, it can create an internal noise because of the crowding, and it interrupts the whole productivity by a factor called downtime, in which people try to move, try to get an information. The fifth factor is social interaction. Refreshment areas, canteen, position to equipment are really important to give freedom to your workers. So I think that open areas are more for people that are working on digital or developing ideas, where the enclosed is more for relations centered businesses. Flex is open to a younger generation today. So finally, the problem with the COVID, I want to talk about quickly the pandemic, in which the COVID-19 made the remote work available for everybody. It centralizes for everybody, and it proved to be something that worked today compared to how it was not used before and not encouraged before. So that is my look on productivity in the workplace, and I'll get back to the moderator.
Thank you so much, Mouad Belemlih. Now we're gonna move on to another guest. Last but not least, Mrs. Wissal Chafik. Yeah, thank you so much for joining our webinar and for being part of it and sharing your experience with us. Um, you are muted. Can you please? Okay, okay. Can you try to talk right now, please? I cannot hear you, Mrs. Wissal Chafik. There is something with the mic, I guess. Can you try again, please? No, no. I cannot hear you. I cannot hear you. There is a problem with the mic. We're gonna get back to you. We're gonna get back to you once you fix it.
I think it's working now.
Okay. Okay. It's working now. It's working now. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sorry about that technical issue.
It's not working again. Okay.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
You are not clear. I'm sorry, Mrs. Wissal Chafik, you are not clear. We're gonna move on to the Q&A session, and then once we fix your problem, we can talk again. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So we're gonna move on to the Q&A. Okay. So we have many questions from the people that are watching us. Thank you very much. By the way, we have a question to Dr. Ziyad Mourabiti from Kenza Farajallah. I have a question for Ziyad. Can communication alone boost productivity in the workplace? You are free to answer, Dr. Ziyad.
Thank you, Moderator Kenza. Thank you, Kenza, for your question. The short answer is no. The long answer is, I would say, that it varies. I would say that also it depends on the communication, essentially. It depends on the kind of communication that is held. Yes, you cannot boost your productivity with zero communication, but it has to have a meaning. You can have a lot of meetings between employees, but the subject is as important as the communication process itself. Now, a lot of meetings either end up with no valuable conclusions, and sometimes when it does, there may be no follow-up to that meeting, which loses the point of having communication in the first place. So the best way is to essentially combine good and valuable communication with other elements that I've mentioned, such as accountability, for example, because it acts as a good follow-up. I hope I answered Ms. Kenza, and back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I guess your answer was clear. And yeah, we're going to move on to another question. Okay. There are some statements that we can share in the screen, and you can read it as guests, and then we're gonna find another question. Okay, so there is another question for Dr. Mourabiti. How is it that communicating the direction of the workplace to employees helps boost their productivity?
I see. Thank you, Larry. I would say that communicating the direction of a workplace is essential because it essentially allows them to feel like that they are indeed part of this company as active influencers, as active decision makers within the company itself. It increases their inner feel of accountability, which thus leads to an increased level of productivity. It is generally a feeling of empowerment that contributes to the work and diligence of employees as well within the workplace. This was kind of a short answer, but I hope it was straight to the point. Thank you.
Indeed, it was. Thank you so much, Dr. Ziyad. As I am reading the comments right now, they are pretty good. Some people actually shared their experiences as well. Please feel free to ask questions. There is a question from Aymane. Would you say that sharing a workspace with your boss manager would be more efficient to the productivity? or would you say it will decrease it, maybe create anxiety and uncomfort issues? Um,
So I think this, I will be taking the question. I think it's directed to me.
of course.
So I think that working with your boss, it's hard to answer because it depends on where you work and with whom you work. Uh, I'd say that if you're in a the new generation type of enterprise, it is better because people tend to be more open and try to have better communication with their managers. I think it takes off also the sense of hierarchy inside the enterprise, and it takes off a toll in the mind of the workers. And so, in a sense, yeah. However, another point that I could say is that having your boss next to you can also makes you stressful a bit for some people. So yet again, I'd say that depending on whether people are mature enough or not, it can increase the productivity. I hope it answers the question.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Mouad Belemlih. There is another question from Zakia Mufid. I would first like to thank you for this constructive and compelling webinar. We would like to thank you for being here and listening to our guests. My question is for Mr. Aymane. Okay, so this is for you, Mr. Aymane Yassine. As a
Okay.
manager, how would you deal with a lazy employee?
So first of all, when we're dealing with a lazy employee, you have to know why he's lazy. Like, is there any is there any causes like environmental causes, or is he having some personal issues or personal problems? Then you have to to move to the next step, or to the next step. Then, like, if there is no reason for that, then you have to be strict with him. I can say, like, give him warnings, or make meetings during the week with him to keep up what he's doing. So this was just like a short answer for this question. I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ayman Yassine. I think that Mrs. Wissal Chafik fixed her problem. We're gonna get back to her, and then we're gonna get back to the Q&A session. So, yes, here is Mrs. Wissal Chafik with us.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Mrs. Wissal. Um,
Uh, thank you, Kenza. Sorry for that technical issue. As past speakers have discussed productivity from their own perspective, I will be doing so similarly from my own. I have been escalating the professional ladder since a young age, until my current position. Although my professional career was full of diversity, I have always associated success with hard work and productivity with being busy. However, little did I know these associations were wrong. To explain, according to James Clear, an entrepreneur and author of the New York Times best-selling book Atomic Habits, productivity means a measure of efficiency of a person completing a task. Being productive is mainly about maintaining a steady, average uh, pace on a few things, not maximum speed on everything. While being busy, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, refers to being actively involved in doing something or having a lot of things to do, and can also refer, according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, to being foolishly or intrusively active. To better illustrate the difference, here I quote John Spencer, an author and illustrator. There's a difference between being busy and being productive. Being busy is about working harder, while being productive is about working smarter. Being busy is frantic, while being productive is focused. Being busy is fueled by perfectionism, while being productive is fueled by purpose. Being busy is being good at everything, while being productive is being great at a few important things. Saying yes to everything worked for me and gave me a lot of self-satisfaction, as I believe it does for many of the ones that are viewing us now and our environment in general. I thought I was tired, but in fact, I was burned out when I started blocking my weekends and on top of my weekdays in order to catch up on work. According to a plus one peer-reviewed article, in fact, burnout is a syndrome that results from from constant chronic stress at work, with several consequences to workers' well-being and health. I kept digging until I found out that according to a recent Gallup study of nearly 7,500 full-time employees, 23% of employees reported feeling burned out at work very often or always, while an additional 44% reported feeling burned out sometimes. In addition, according to the same article mentioned previously, the one of plus one, burnout was a significant predictor of the following physical consequences, among which mortality below the age of 45 years old. The psychological effects were also very important, as they included hospitalization for mental disorders and psychological ill health symptoms. But does this mean that we're going to die? Well, not really, because then again, following my research, I stumbled upon a wonderful book. Here it is. It's called Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less, in which author Greg McKeown touches upon in his work the importance of focusing on less in order to achieve more, proving most of the contrasts about productivity and being busy that we have previously talked about. According to Oxford Languages, essentialism is a belief that things have a set of characteristics which make them the way they are, and the task of science and philosophy is their discovery and expression, the doctrine that essence is prior to existence. According to CNBC, Charles Darwin, as an example, only worked for 4 hours a day, as well as Stephen King, which they described as efficient but not lazy. To start moving towards becoming an essentialist, there are a few things one can implement, either from a managerial perspective that includes coworkers and organizational charts, or individually. And they are as follows. Prioritizing what is important. And this follows recognizing that multitasking is a myth, as one can only multi-shift with a high speed that makes them think that they are multitasking. Recognizing what is important makes you engage in deep work. And as it is illustrated in the slide that is upon us, once we focus on what is important, we put forward all of our energy and direct it into just one task that we can do with a more productive and efficient way, rather than distributing our energy in a lot of things that we don't necessarily accomplish. And also, one important thing, the one I will be concluding with, is learning how to say no to the things that don't matter. And although this might seem as tricky or risky, it actually boosts your integrity as you seem more in control and starts creating actual change. For example, if someone in your firm or a friend or a colleague is invested and specialized in logistics or in finance, it's logical to not give them other tasks that do not fit in their specialty. However, this doesn't always happen in reality, as we like to be helpful to other people. So saying no makes you really focus on what is important for your work in order to make it more productive and more impactful. And thank you, Kenza. Coming back to you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Wissal. That was really helpful as you talked about essentialism and how we can be. There is a question for you from WM. Do you consider burnout as an obstacle or as a consequence of the lack of an efficient essentialist system in the workplace?
Uh, I would actually answer this question as burnout being both a factor and a consequence. First of all, a consequence, since we start working a lot and we do not give time for leisure, for having a break, and for pausing a minute. And this doesn't necessarily have to happen just from an individual, because managers also give us a lot of work. And sometimes we just do not and cannot say no to them. So a manager needs to realize that their employees and coworkers in general need to start prioritizing their health and giving things their own time in order to not feel burned out. And as we said, an obstacle, it stops you from actually doing the work that is indeed needed, one that makes you feel more productive, because productivity is more about um, uh, achieving things, like being efficient in one thing. It's filled with purpose, as we already said, and not just doing one thing or the other.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Mrs. Wissal. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today for the questions. Our guests were really happy to be with you and to share with you all of their experiences. Um, and we would like to thank all of the viewers, the live ones and the ones that are gonna watch us in the future. And see you soon. Thank you so much. Thank you for being and assisting this webinar.
Thank you all. Goodbye.